Բարև ձեզ հարգելի բարեկամներ, Սփյուռքի ձայնը հեռուստահանդեսը դարձյալ ձեզ հետ է։ Այսօր ես ուզում եմ կրկնել եւ ձեր ուշադրությանը ներկայացնել 2 տարի առաջ Նյու Յորքում տեղի ունեցած Կարմիր շունը ոռնում է ներկայացման մասին մեր պատրաստած ակնարկը, որի հեղինակն էր ազգությամբ կես հայ եւ կես հույն Alexander Dinelarisը։ Alexander Dinelarisը անցյալ տարի արժանացավ Օսկար մրցանակի Birdman ֆիլմի սցենարի համար։ Այս ներկայացումը հեղինակը նվիրել է իր հայ տատին, Ռոզին, Վարդանուշին, որը եղել է հայոց ցեղասպանության վերապրող։ Դիտենք այն։
Red Dog Howls, a play written by Alexander Dinelaris and directed by Ken Rushmall, explores the horror of a forgotten genocide, the enduring strength of the human spirit, and how the choices we make for our children will, for better or worse, reverberate for generations to come. This powerful play is currently presented in the New York Theater Workshop running through October 14th. In the play, the protagonist Michael Kyriakos finds a box of old letters belonging to his late father, which leads him to dig up the buried secrets of his family history. After a series of mysterious encounters with his grandmother Rose, a captivating elderly Armenian woman, Michael eventually uncovers a past he never knew existed, one of exile, sacrifice, and ultimately redemption. The playwright Alexander Dinelaris is currently working in the West End, London, on the stage adaptation of The Bodyguard. His off-Broadway credits include Still Life, The Chaos Theories, and many others.
Alex, of course, writing a play is a very difficult, long process that requires tremendous amount of dedication, work, and perseverance. The reason I bring this up is because in order to do all that, you need to be really dedicated to the material. And of course, I know that to some degree this is an autobiographical aspect to it. But what drove you to write this play?
I started to write this play after my father had passed away. He passed away in January of 2005. And I was raised by his mother, who was my Armenian grandmother, when I was very young, from the ages up to maybe 6 years old. And after my father dies, I'd really lost touch with that part of my family, of those roots. I had married my wife, and we were going to have a child. And I started considering my history and the sort of sadness that existed in my family with my father and my grandmother, which was never sort of discussed. And I was afraid I might pass that down to my child, if that makes any sense at all. And so that question started to bother me, and the more I looked for a way to explain that in terms of a play, the more I started to think of a mystery that would uncover a man's roots, in my case the Armenian roots, and by digging into his past and his culture and his history, he could become a man and could then save his family or be there for his family. And that was the question nagging me, and that's how I began to conceive this play. That was the initial bug that kept me working for a few years on it.
In many of your interviews and on many occasions, you stress that this is not a political play. Yeah. But my question to you, arguably, it would be fair to say that it has the event itself has such a weight for it to be completely non-political. What kind of message would you like to convey to the audience with this play?
Yeah, I think that the most important thing is that Red Dog Howls is written in the style of Greek tragedy, and it is a tragedy. But outside of that, it's about a man finding his roots. It's about a history that had been buried and that he needs to discover. And in this case, the story winds back to 1915. But I use it as a historical fact. I'm not here to argue about whether who's denying and what's a genocide and what's not a genocide and what are atrocities. I have my feelings about that, but this is not the place for it. You know, this is the theater, and we're exploring actually more human questions and not sociological questions. So really what I want people to know is this is a story when you watch Michael, and again, it is a tragedy, and the events leading to it are horrifying, beyond horrifying. But they're used only as a catalyst to describe why this family fell apart. As Michael proceeds through this play, as he winds through the mystery, he discovers the tastes and flavors and feelings. He says, when I walked into her apartment and I saw the sights and the sounds and the smells, I felt home. For a man that never felt home. And I think that's, if you come to this play thinking, well, it's just a genocide play, it's not. I don't preach about politics at all. I just say that this event happened because I 100% believe and have proof that it happened, so that's not even a question for me. So I don't want to explore it past there. I just want to say that event happened, something horrible happened in that event, and it caused a ripple effect generation to generation, which is the effect of genocide. And this is about a journey of cleansing ourselves, of putting that pain to rest and moving on. In the end of this play, Michael discovers something he never knew before, which was he's Armenian in the real sense of the word. He understands it without ever having lived it as a child. It's in his nature. So that's what I want to say the play.
In some degree, Michael is not necessarily you per se, but it comes out of you. It comes out of your own emotional journey.
A lot of it.
A lot of it. If you can just give me, in a sense, in terms of the arch of Michael, what happens, who is he in the beginning of the play, and who is he at the end of the play? What is his redemption? What is his enlightenment? What is his understanding? What should we understand in this journey with Michael?
Right. That's a very difficult question to ask. I'm going to try, to answer. I'm going to try, because I don't want to give...
To ask as well.
To ask as well, yeah. The play is a mystery, so I don't want to give anything away at the end. But in the beginning, Michael has been raised by his father and his grandfather, and his grandmother is long dead, and he believes that he's Greek. His name is Greek. He was raised by two Greek men, and he believes he's Greek. His father passes away. He finds a letter that leads him to this apartment where he meets a woman that he finds out is related to him in one way or another. And Michael's journey is that his father and his father's father and his father's mother kept secrets. All the things that happened back in the old country when the bad things happened were kept secret. And those secrets caused each generation to close up, to be isolated, to not be whole, to be scared. And Michael's journey as he goes through the learning process of what he really is, he becomes full. He feels roots finally. So he's a tree that was waving in the wind, and now he slowly puts roots into the ground. And by the end of the story, though the ending again is very sad and tragic, and I don't mean to answer questions of the genocide, that's important. I mean to ask questions by the end of this play. But by the end of this play, he sits up and he says, I don't believe in violence. I don't believe in a God that wants blood. I believe in the different God, a God that wants mercy, a God that wants forgiveness, a God that would do anything for his children.
I'm sure our audience would be very interested if there is any opportunity at all to see this play in the Republic of Armenia.
I mean, I would pray so.
We're on TV. We might as well ask Peach for it.
Please invite me. There would be nothing that would make me happier, the spirit of my family and my grandmother, than that would make me incredibly proud. And I hope that does happen. So whoever's able to make that happen, please call. This play here in New York runs till October 14th at the New York Theater Workshop. There's possibly, if it's supported really well, we could have an extension conceivably to the end of October. What happens after that is going to be a question, because it's not the most commercial play. It's very tough. So what kind of life it might find in New York afterwards, it's going to be done. They've asked to do it in Greece, in Athens, in Italy. So it will have a life outside of here, and that's good for me. And the more people that hear the play, I think, the better it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure our audience, our viewers, after they learn about the play, learn about the subject, would be very interested to come and see it. And we certainly encourage. Best of luck.
Thank you so much.
The character of Rose, a 91-year-old Armenian grandmother, is played by Kathleen Chalfant, who is a 1993 Tony nominee for Angels in America. She won the Drama Desk Award for Outstanding Actress for Wit in 1999.
Kathy, before I asked you about the character herself, I want to know, what is it in this character, when they approached you with this role, what is it in this character that attracted you?
It's Rose's fierceness, her courage, her, in the end, great honesty. She was a remarkable and slightly frightening woman, and a complicated woman, which is always the most interesting kind of character to play.
there is a transformation in this character, of course, because she lives alone and then comes the person who helps her and she helps this person to find their identity. Can you elaborate on the arc of this character? Where does she, who is she in the beginning of the play, and what does she recognize, realizes at the end of the play?
At the very beginning of the play, she's not at all sure that she wants to take this journey, because she understands that it's a terribly painful journey and that it involves co-opting another person. So at the very beginning, she tries to send her grandson away, and then she can't. And so over the course of the play, she is both moving toward the end that she desperately wants, and at the same time falling in love with her grandson, who looks exactly like her son, who looked exactly like his father. So it is a battle, the whole play is a battle between life and death for Rose.
For you as an actress, when you were preparing for this role, to genuinely understand the pain of Rose, who has gone through these atrocities, how did you approach it? First, how much information you knew beforehand, and what was your preparation for this role?
Well, first of all, this is the second Armenian grandmother I've played. A few years ago, I was in Leslie Avesian's play, 9 Armenians, and when I did 9 Armenians, I did quite a lot of research about Armenia and the dissolution of the Ottoman Empire at the end of the 19th, beginning of the 20th century. But the thing about this story that is the most tragic thing about this story is that it isn't, sadly, only about one genocide. The thing that happens in this story has happened over and over and over again, particularly throughout the 20th century. And the way that you could understand Rose's pain in a modern context is to think about the stain of violence that war has woven throughout the 20th century and sadly the beginning of the 21st century, so that in some way all of us are touched by it and all of us are capable of it, which is, I think, the lesson that finally we must learn. We mustn't do these things.
We mustn't do these things, but unfortunately these things keep on happening. And at least I believe that a recognition of Armenian genocide would be a step towards correct.
There's no question, because the first, always the first step toward reconciliation in those places where there has been a kind of reconciliation is the admission of the act itself, because you can't move forward. I mean, part of what happens in this play is that a story is told that's never been told before in this woman's life, and it comes out into the world, and until it's in the world, you can never erase, you never can erase the pain, but you can never begin to ease the pain, to address the shadow that events like this place in people's lives.
When I was preparing for this interview, I was reading reviews and so forth, and everybody uniformly speaks about incredibly powerful performance that you deliver, with an incredible high level of emotional intensity. What I would be interested is, how do you personally, as an individual, relate to Rose? Where does a Rose live inside of you to be able to connect with it on that level, on that emotional level?
You know, I don't think I can answer that question. I don't know. It's the shaman part of acting, I guess. You know, you don't know.
It's the magic.
It's the whatever. It's the, you know, the Greeks talked about the goddess. You do all the work and prepare, and in a case like this where there is a wonderful text to support you. What it feels like you do is learn the words and figure out where to stand and then just do it. And sometimes there's a connection, and it's not a connection that you can explain. I don't know why. I'm, you know, Irish and English and have lived in America most of my life. Why I should be able to connect to this fierce 91-year-old Armenian woman, but I hope I do. And if I do, it's through the text and through whatever that other thing is. It's the part you can't ever explain.
Thank you so much for this interview.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
The role of the protagonist, Michael, is played by Alfredo Narciso, whose Broadway credits include A Streetcar Named Desire and many off-Broadway appearances, as well as performances in film and TV.
Alfredo, I want to talk to you about the character of Michael, the protagonist.
Okay, great.
As a performer, as someone who embodies this character, why do you think it's important for this character to discover its past, to discover its heritage? Why do you think this character goes through this journey and, essence, discovering himself, discovering his own identity?
That's great. That's a great question. I think what's happening, we find Michael when he's 34 years old at the beginning of the play, and his father has just died, and he finds this small box of letters, and then he traces it to this old Armenian woman. And what he discovers in that is that he has this tremendous sorrow and pain that is living inside of him, that has lived in his father and his grandfather, and he needs to locate the source of his pain, basically, because his wife is pregnant, he has a baby on the way, and he is so afraid that he is going to pass it on to his child. So he is on a mission to find it and to try and eradicate it, basically.
For you personally, as an actor, I'm curious about the process of understanding this character and connecting emotionally with it. How did you embody it? How did you make it real?
Well, I was very lucky to have Alex in the room, of course, who I think is this is very autobiographical play for him. So to hear him talk about it, to see him, just that made it very visceral for me. I also read, and I hope I'm pronouncing it right, but Peter Balakian and Grigoris Balakian's books, Armenian Golgotha and Black Dog of Fate, and that really helped me to get inside of these people's minds, and so that was a big part of it.
How do you feel about the play?
Well, for me, it is like literally like getting on a train that I cannot get off of. I mean, I start the play, I end the play, I bookend it. And so for me, that's an exhilarating and a terrifying experience at the same time. But I think that the play is, we've discovered in the last couple days, has tremendous impact on the audience. Last night we had a few standers, which was really very nice. And yeah, I think it's having an impact.
In the supporting role of Michael's pregnant wife is Florencia Lozano, who has appeared in NYSF Macbeth, Labyrinth Dirty Story, Lab MTC Where's My Money, and many others.
Florencia, you're playing a character of Gabriella, who's a wife of protagonist Michael, who's undergoing his own transformation, his own identity crisis, and trying to find his past and reconcile with his presence. Tell us what kind of role this character plays as a supportive character for the main protagonist.
Gabriella represents hope in a lot of ways. She's pregnant with Michael's baby, and a lot of what Michael is learning throughout the play and is going through, the journey he goes on, is to become the father to this child that he wants to be, and the husband to me that I want him to be, a man who is able to truly be present for his daughter and his wife, not just physically, but emotionally. He comes from, he was abandoned. His father was abandoned. He comes from a legacy of abandonment, which of course links back to genocide in a sort of roundabout way. But those events are linked, and Alex is really writing about that. Is how there's this sort of trickle down, for lack of a better term, of violence done on a grand level, how that becomes personal and passed down from generation to generation. So my character is really needing him to come through this journey, to meet her on the other side, so that they can become a family in a new sort of way, perhaps a more healthy, whole way than when he started the journey.
Prior to the play, how much of the history did you know? And how, now that you are involved in a play, and obviously it's a difficult play, it's an emotional play,
Yes.
and it must have a tremendous amount of effect on you personally. How has that changed you?
You know, I'm really embarrassed to say I knew so little about the genocide that happened in Armenia. I knew something in passing. I knew that there had been such a thing, but you know, in the play, there's a lot of there's a theme of words and language, and how, you know, the word genocide, that's the word that I knew in relation to what had happened. But to really fully start to even understand what I don't know about the meaning of that word and about the meaning of what happened there is what happened for me when I started becoming involved with the play. You know, I did, you know, I'm doing a little bit of research, and I guess what stuns me, there are many things that stun me about my ignorance concerning this event, is the sort of denial around it. You know, like really no other genocide that I've heard of. The fact that there is still sort of official government denial from the Turkish consulate specifically in terms of our play is horrifying to me and disturbing to me. My parents are from Argentina, and I actually wrote a play that dealt somewhat with the dirty war that happened in Argentina in the 1970s, where 20,000 people were disappeared. And when people came to see the play I wrote, they didn't know that such a thing had happened in Argentina and that the U.S. government had played a role in that. And so I think that while this play is very specific about Armenia, it is universal in that, unfortunately, there have been so many cultures and so many countries that have been affected by this kind of brutality.
Tell us in a few words, sort of the inside anecdotes of how was it to work with this ensemble? How did this whole play come together as one organic piece, as one organic, you know, body?
Well, you know, I had friends who said to me, "Oh, this is going to be it's going to be so hard for you to work on something so sad," and it is challenging to tell this story every night, but there's something tremendously cathartic about it. Hearing the audience hear the story and go through sympathizing and empathizing and having true catharsis in the sort of dramatic true dramatic sense is something that gives me incredible pleasure, and it's such a gift as an artist to feel like I'm getting to be part of something that does that for an audience. And because the subject matter was so dark, there was a real silly goofiness that happened in the rehearsal room to sort of counterbalance the story we were telling. And I found that telling this story and thinking about what happened to these characters gave me perspective on my own life, which really helped me to see that the struggles that I have, while not discounting them, are relatively easy compared to the greater struggles that a lot of people have gone through and are going through, many places in the planet right now, it was sort of comforting to be part of something that was bigger than myself, and that was really an important story to tell. It made me, it grounded me in my own, you know, personal mishigas, day-to-day complaints. It gave me a really important perspective that I'm very grateful for.
Thank you so much, and best of luck.
Thank you.
While the play revolves around the subject of Armenian genocide, its message and appeal is universal, and the fact that a non-Armenian cast is capable of reaching such a high level of performance reinforces that simple truth.